So yeah, for tonight's pregame show, between Thursday and today, I haven't really read a lot. I've made a few false starts on trying to get to the end of Terry Pratchett's Mort, which owes more to distraction than it does to the quality of that book. But I have had time to watch something, which is the... where are we at? There we go. Yes, the 1927 black and white film, A Diary of Chuji's Travels, which is a Japanese silent film, one of the earlier ones, earliest, and it does something that is cinematically fantastic at the start. As from the research I've done, the cinema sort of developed early on in Japan. It was seen more as an extension of theater rather than a photography, and photography is kind of part of the lineage that we sort of think of it as in terms of realistically capturing a visual or an image. But yeah, the theatrical is sort of more the aesthetic that cinema is representing or continuing rather. And the opening to A Diary of Chuji's Travels really takes advantage of that. I'm going to show you what it does here. I actually haven't finished watching this one, but I wanted to, I love this intro so much I wanted to show you. So yeah, so here's the opening of this. The copy that I have has the timestamp on it. So this is the opening credits sequence. You can see the credits scrolling up from the bottom. The credits scroll actually, and to be clear, as you can kind of see from the different frames here, the credits are actually scrolling. The scroll ends halfway up the screen, which is fascinating. It's not. It is not the priority. It is a secondary, or it is one of two priorities. The top priority is to set the stage for a conflict that Chuji is having in the middle of the night that we don't get to see, but we get to see the elements of. So what you see up there at the top, those are the those are some paper lanterns that would have little flames inside of them, and each one of those represents a person holding it. So those would be the assailants. And it doesn't come across super well in the still images, but these are jostling around, and you can see them kind of shaking, moving back and forth. And so you've got the actors there in the dark, kind of moving around. So you never actually see the physical assailants. You just see these representations of them. And then after a little while, near the end of the credits, it cuts from that far away distant view where all you're seeing are these lanterns vaguely in the background. And as soon as you sort of get a grasp on what you're looking at, it then cuts to a mid-distance view where you get to see the assailants holding up the paper lanterns. You can see them just barely illuminated by them. And here you can see you see that one guy there with his arms up and he's falling down, and the other guy there sort of curled up, having been slain, as it turns out. And so yeah, so you go from long distance of conflict, mid-view, and then you finally end on Chuji himself, the man who has slain his attackers. And here, he's just in the darkness. You don't see him interact with anybody. You don't see any swordplay. You just see him regard his assailants on the ground. He's kind of picks up one of their paper lanterns, which is, sliced, clearly an implied indication of his, an implication of his violence, right? Because the sword cuts through it, and it's on fire, so it's very dramatic and popping. And then he takes his sword, wipes it on his robe, and then kind of does a nice little twirl, and then resheathes it, and then puts a cowl on and disappears into the night. And this is all very theatrical, right? This could happen on a dark stage under a spotlight, and you just sort of have to infer what's going on, and then gradually you catch on. It's not given to you directly. And one of the things I really like about this in particular is this lantern. This lantern is doing a lot of work in terms of implying what just happened as you're figuring it out. And then after that introduction, which happens at the credits at the very start, Chuji kind of goes off into the night. It cuts to the first piece of explication, which is Chuji flees Mount Akagi with Kantaro, son of his late follower. You never met his late follower. I don't think he's really even properly named. This is just the end of whatever episode that was. And yeah, it just throws you right into it. And you're in the middle of a story. It's in media res. And yeah, just a beautiful, way of showing that sort of like, it's stylized violence, not in the Takashi Miike sense. It's stylized presentation, and yeah, it's magnificent. So I think it's fantastic. And yeah, with that, we can go ahead and get started. One second, let me pull up